Hello everyone, welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Luis, and we are not just back with another anime video, we are back with another Beastars video. Finally, it's only been over a year. This time we are going to talk about Season 2, and I have many thoughts and even some opinions I have that changed from my first video. If you have not watched my video on Season 1, girl, what are you doing? Go back and watch it. I really wanted to follow up on this show because I just found this season to be wild. I was also surprised at the angle they were taking with the character arcs. If you are watching this video on Season 2, I will assume you know who everyone is, so I won't bore you again with an explanation. So let's get into it. Spoilers ahead, Gorge. So I really want to say, for my first watch, I thought this season was all over the place. I mean, it is. I guess more so because the season is very Louis heavy. We did not get to see too much of him last season. That and the really weird start of this season. Another thing I want to say before I really get going, sorry to all the furry straight boys who wanted to tune back in for more rabbit boobies. Seriously, my heart goes out to all the straight men coming back and just getting bombarded with all the gay subtext, and I say subtext very loosely. Last season, we have the show dip our toes into the black market, but now we pretty much fully dive into the underground world of Beastars. After offing the Shishigumi boss, they make Louis their new boss. They thought making a Beastar candidate their new leader would be a smart move for their reputation. At first, they were holding Louis hostage, but he later embraced the role and realized that he could do good in this role. His goal is to help the weak. Now Tem's devouring finally gets brought up. Remember him literally starting the series? Yeah, that finally gets addressed. The reason why I tuned into Beastars in the first place was I thought the show would be a murder mystery. I love those. Legoshi gets put on the case by Hexai. I have some scathing thoughts on Hexai, but I'll voice them later. Legoshi gets on the case and finds out who it is. We get some cool sequences of him trying to find out who it is, even getting intimidated by the culprit when he gets too close to figuring him out, which I love, makes for a juicy mystery. Meanwhile, Louis is just doing his thing as the leader of the Shishigumi. I honestly can't tell you the stuff he does. That's a whole bunch of organized crime business that went right over my head. The most interesting part of that would be Louis' conversations with Ibuki. Louis develops a very close relationship with Ibuki, who is his right hand and the previous boss's right hand. I will talk more about their dynamic later. We find out that this bear Riz is the one who ate Tem. After this, we get a lot of time with Riz, and we get to see who he is as a character and what leads him to devouring Tem. Legoshi, after realizing his opponent is way bigger and stronger than him, goes off to train. So Legoshi goes to Gohin, who teaches Legoshi how to fight, even teaching him tricks to fight other species. All of this while training to stave off his predatory instincts to eat meat. After this journey of self-discovery and newfound confidence, he goes to fight Riz on New Year's Eve. They mean for this fight to be a fight to the death, and Legoshi tells Louis about it beforehand, because he wants Louis to be there. Louis comes to support him, and then it escalates to Louis offering his own leg for Legoshi so he can win the fight. Legoshi wins the fight, Riz doesn't die, he is detained by the police, Legoshi gets a history of predation put on his record. In the very last minutes of the season, he tells Haru that he is dropping out of school. Last season, one of the factors that made me keep watching was the world building, and Season 2 did not disappoint. Now that we are more acquainted with how this world works, we can get into some deeper world building that is not so surface level. There is this one scene that I love. These two girls from the drama club, Sheila and Peach, go on a little friend date at the mall. Sheila wanted to prove a point that herbivores don't really want to hang out with carnivores, they just want to take pictures with them because it makes them look good on social media. On impulse, Sheila asks Peach if she wanted to hang out. Sheila is taken off guard when Peach accepts without hesitation. And through this, they get a better understanding of each other's experiences and little struggles that neither would have thought of. Like how Peach is jealous of her athletic body, but Sheila is jealous that Peach can wear patterns because her wool is not patterned. But shortly after that, Sheila learns that Peach cannot wear certain materials because it will cause static with her wool. Then after a day of hanging out, they take a selfie, but Peach decides to keep it to herself so she can remember the moment she made a new friend. The message from this is that yes, we might not have the same lived experiences and have different struggles, but that doesn't mean we cannot come to an understanding and still live amongst each other peacefully. There is even the subplot throughout the season where there's word of the school planning on segregating the student body, which apparently many schools have been doing for a while now. Most of the students in the drama club don't believe the school should be segregated despite having differences. For example, Juno believes that herbivores and carnivores should be segregated. There are some good reasons for it on paper. There are devourings, and even later in the drama club, Kibi, an anteater's arm was pulled off by Tao, a Black Panther student, completely by accident. However, since this is a common issue, they were able to put it back on. Even though this happened to Kibi, he forgives Tao because he did not want to live in fear of carnivores. And Tao swore not to touch another herbivore again. Kibi asked him to grab his hand, the very one that he tore off because Kibi knew there was no point in living in fear of other people. That is part of what the story is trying to tell us. Herbivores and carnivores coming to an understanding. All people coming to an understanding and living peacefully amongst each other. We also get a better understanding of what devouring symbolizes in the show. And this takes me to my next point. So in my last video on Beastars, I went pretty hard on this show for having a vor fetish. I mean, I kinda wasn't wrong, but I only had a part of the concept. Throughout this season, I picked up that devouring and sex were two sides of the same coin in this world. We get a better view of this in the scene where Cosmo the deer is an exotic dancer in the black market performing for carnivores, basically driving them crazy, blurring the line between lust and hunger. In retrospect, that makes the situation with Legoshi and Haru more understandable. Haru was not willing to be eaten by lions she didn't know, but she was willing to be eaten by someone she knows and cares about. In my eyes, I don't think that makes things any better, honestly. I still hate it, because the cost of the person being eaten is literally dying or, at the very least, maiming themselves. I just don't really jive well with that message at all. I guess it's the larger metaphor that you are becoming one with your beloved, which I guess can be poetic, but in practice, just no. There are many examples in the show that devouring someone is sexually charged. Take this very not subtle example in episode 5. Pina, the twink ram they introduced after Louie left the drama club, does some buck wild spicy moments for the show. It was like he got a call from someone that the role of twink heartthrob needed to be filled. But anyway, Pina is alone backstage with Legoshi. Pina starts talking to him about if he has a girlfriend. Legoshi gets sheepish and doesn't want to tell Pina about his business since his situation with Haru is too complicated to tell someone in passing. Legoshi tries to walk away, but Pina tries to get some more information out of him, calling him adorable, then asking him to teach him the meaning of pure, untainted love. Then he asks Legoshi about morality and asking why is it so bad to have more than one lover. Then all of a sudden he gets all seductive and starts caressing Legoshi's face, then putting his hands in his mouth to reveal his teeth and tells Legoshi that if he were to take a bite out of him, he wouldn't blame him. Then Pina turns off the lights and says if he is ever alone in a dark room with a girl, he would be tempted to kiss her, all while inching toward Legoshi. Then, right after, he asks if he feels like eating him. So this is a clear example of the closeness of the two natures of devouring and sexual pleasure. Within the same breath that Pina is talking about kissing, he is talking about Legoshi eating him. I also came to the realization with the fact that predation as well as relationships between herbivores and carnivores is a metaphor for queerness. There is a lot to unpack with that though, so we need to look deeper into the storylines of the season. For Legoshi's story arc, he is building off what he learned about himself last season. He has decided that he wants to protect herbivores and not harm them. At the beginning of the season, he gets put on the case by Hexai. Can we talk about Hexai for just a second? I'll call her Hexai because that's what the subs changed her name to. Her Japanese name is Rokume, which just means 6 eyes. She was pretty much used as a plot device for Legoshi to be put on the case, but she doesn't really come back up in later parts of the season. Also, I guess this was a pretty hard decision to make when designing her when you have a world with anthropomorphic animals. You can't really win when it comes to this design because the main characteristic of a snake is that they don't have appendages. So to just make her a giant snake just takes you out of the fantasy. I don't know if snakes should have even been included in this world. Then we have the fact that she's a total creep. She's supposed to be campus security, but she hides in the shadows and no one even knows the campus has security, which I think is pretty bad. Not only that, but she confronts a student in the laundry room after hours. Not just talking to him, but also constricting him. Imagine some security guard just manhandling a 17-year-old kid while they're trying to just talk. Also saying how jealous she is of his limbs and how Legoshi is a great physical specimen, and a ton of other things that would be inappropriate for a school employee to say to a student. That and the fact that Hexai as a character makes no sense whatsoever. She's a security guard that just hides around the school and does not make herself known to the students. She also tells Legoshi, a student, that he should take on the case of Tem's murder. This is just a PR nightmare in the making. So Legoshi is looking for Tem's murderer. He talks to one of Tem's best friends. It was this guy, Carl. Just look at how Carl looks at Tem. He was just attracting men left and right. I find it just a little offensive how queer-coded male anime characters have a feminine lash. But the reason why I don't really care is that they look so good. But of course, Carl had to be Elsa's ex-boyfriend to show that he wasn't gay and totally in love with Tem. Legoshi eventually gets Tem's diary. He's able to deduce that the drama club was the only place where he met carnivores. He starts getting threats from the culprit, meaning they know he is getting close. Then, at the end of episode 4, he gets knocked out and blindfolded by the culprit. Legoshi has a cold, so he couldn't smell him. So he does what any sensible manly straight man would do. He puts his tongue in his mouth. Not just that, but also wrapping his legs around him as a straight man would. The thing that I'm sure Haru Itagaki purposefully looked over was that canines have a terrible sense of taste. So the fact that Legoshi is trying to taste this guy is entirely uncalled for and not something that will actually aid him in his investigation. Then the guy runs away, probably blushing. After that, he gets a wake-up call that his opponent is way stronger than him. So he turns to the only person he knows that can help him fight people, Gohin. Before he does this, he goes to his friend and roommate, Jack, tells him to pass on a message to the teachers that he will be gone for a few days. They have this moment, again, a pretty gay moment. You would expect this kind of scene to happen with Haru, his supposed love interest, but no, he's having this moment with Jack. Jack is expressing how scared he is for Legoshi, that he has been in a place far from him. Jack's also noticing the stronger Legoshi gets, the more miserable he becomes, which Jack cannot stand to see. Then Legoshi just takes a moment to admire him aesthetically, you know, as friends do, calling Jack dazzling, and it's this whole dramatic parting of ways between friends that just doesn't have a heterosexual explanation to me. This to me feels like yet another hint that Legoshi likes guys. We had a moment like this last season where he has a moment with Aoba where he admires him and he admires his beak. This isn't just a one-off thing. Remember all the gawking he did at Louis? We're going to get into more of this later, so buckle up. But now he is with Gohin. He cuts off all of his hair and trains him to become stronger. He does get better at fighting and knows how to tactfully approach fights with specific species. As he is doing this, he is also working on controlling his lust for meat, which can be interpreted as conversion therapy. I know that's a very bold statement to make, but hear me out. Gohin is very anti-eating meat and not for relationships between herbivores and carnivores. In the first season, he tells Legoshi that the whole infatuation he has with Haru is unnatural and something he has to get out of his system. In likeness to conversion therapy, Gohin treats his whole program like a rehab program. For those who are not familiar with the terminology they use, they're usually talking about how one must overcome their addiction to the flesh. Addiction to the flesh. Like, that just works too well with this. Not even that, it is clear that this training is taking a negative physical toll on Legoshi. He used to have one of the strongest bites in class, but now he can barely bite into an apple. So he believes he is doing the right thing, but his body is telling him something different. Very similar to how those in conversion therapy spend years denying themselves, which takes a physical toll on their bodies. However, in Legoshi's case, this is sped up for the plot. But he goes back to school and finds out that this bear Riz in the drama club was the one who ate Tem. I just want to say, I was kind of thrown for a loop. I had no idea who this character was, and there was absolutely no build up to it, which I was very disappointed by, but I guess that this might have been done on purpose because Haru Itagaki really had no intention of making this series a murder mystery. It's clear to me now that this case was not and shouldn't be the focus of the season nor the series. Just because there was no buildup of finding out who the culprit was and having so much screen time with him, showing his side of the story, the lead up, and how he felt about Tem. I will talk about Riz more later in his own dedicated section. So we have Legoshi trying to fight Riz, to the death, mind you, very wild for teenagers, like chill. But anyway, leading up to all this, Legoshi is still struggling with getting stronger. The main obstacle to this is clearly the training he is doing. He just can't be 100% without accepting that part of himself. Just for even more evidence of whether or not this is conversion therapy, let's look at Legoshi's relationship with Haru this season. This season, Haru is almost non-existent. He does talk to her in the first episode, but he kind of keeps his distance. Then after he does his training with Gohin, he actively keeps a distance from her because he wants to keep the world safer for her. While he's training, he wakes up and mentions that he had a lewd dream about Haru and feels ashamed, when there really isn't a reason for him to be ashamed. They like each other, that much is clear, and she's pretty much his girlfriend, yet it's most likely this training that is making him feel ashamed for liking Haru. There is also strong evidence that he has feelings for Louis. In episode 9, Legoshi mentions that he has a vault in his mind of all the scents of the people he knows. He says himself, the easiest scent he can access is Louis', not Haru, his girlfriend, Louis. Then, when he sees him for the first time in a while, his tail starts wagging uncontrollably. Then after this, he just urges Louis to come back to school because apparently they need him, but it's clear that Legoshi wants him back more than anything. With all this denial, he tries eating a bug for sustenance to gain strength. As he's retching about to spit out the bug, like divine intervention, the moth that this larva would have turned into comes to him and asks him why he is planning to spit him out. Then, with a pointed tone, explains to him that Legoshi already took his life. He might as well consume him. He tells the moth that he is trying not to give in to his worldly pleasures, again with the conversion therapy terminology. To consume another creature is to respect the life that it provides you. I would say that it was at this point that Legoshi throws away the ideology that he's been teaching himself. And now that he has done away with these ideals, not so coincidentally, he gets in drag so he can talk to Louis in secret. So this is to show he is no longer holding himself back. He is going to fight with Riz, and Legoshi wants Louis to be there. Why? Because he wants support from his crush, that's why. Like, seriously, if you wanted to argue that they are just friends, why didn't he ask Jack to watch him? Or Bill? On paper, Legoshi shouldn't be as obsessed with Louis as he is if there wasn't a romantic implication. Louis decides to come and he ends up offering his leg, the very leg that has the tattoo he was given in the black market when he was held captive as livestock. So this is Legoshi's grand exit from the ideology that he shackled himself to and became stronger in the process. Riz is a character one wouldn't expect to add as a prominent supporting character. The way the series had started, this show could have been a murder mystery, but Paru Itagaki wanted to make this show very political, and she had a political message to convey. If not political, at least humanitarian. That is the reason there was not much build-up to Riz's reveal, and that is why we get so much screen time with him. We really get to see what kind of person he is, the kind of person who would do such a thing as eat a peer. The story behind it is, not so subtly, a love story. Well, maybe one-sided love. If you change the word friendship to love, it would make perfect sense. Just because of Japanese censorship, they would not be allowed to say that this character loves a boy. What happened was he started to get to know Tem more while in the drama club. He really opens up to Tem. He talks to him about the daily pills bears like him take to make his muscles atrophy, so he's not so strong that he harms much smaller creatures by accident, which was the first time he had ever told anyone about that. So he felt so light and started developing feelings for Tem. So what he did was stop taking his pills because he wanted to show Tem the real him. He meets with him at night to show him. Tem is scared and concerned. Riz tries to keep him from leaving. He almost pulls Tem's arm off. Now Tem is running for his life. The guilt that Riz has after eating Tem has altered his memory of that moment. He remembers that not only did Tem consent to be eaten, but he was also happy about it. This became his coping mechanism. He could not bear the thought of him doing that to his friend and crush. With that, he fabricated the belief that devouring was a celebration of life, and that the most honest relationship that a carnivore and herbivore can have is one eating the other. I was honestly very confused with all this, and how Riz was shown to be in the wrong, while Legoshi is shown to be in the right even after eating Louis' leg. The only thing that would be different in this case would be that Tem did not consent. So, considering the metaphor that eating is used for, this would equate to SA. Again, consenting to be eaten is just so gross. All of this just muddies the message and contradicts Itagaki's message of peace. It took me a while to understand Louis' story arc for this season, but I figured it out by the end of the second watch through. His arc was learning to love carnivores, or realizing that he loved them the whole time. Louis starts the season in a pretty rough spot. He just got rid of the Shishigumi boss, and he is expecting to be killed by his henchmen. But instead, they make him the leader. The reason why was that he was a candidate to be the next Beastar. This is Ibuki's idea. He was the right hand of the previous boss. His train of thought was that since the society is so herbivore supremacist, it would be an interesting look for their street cred to have an herbivore leading a gang of lions. So they essentially forced Louis to be their new boss, holding him captive at first, making him eat meat, which was a cruel thing to do, but they wanted to show him their culture. Part of that, though, was a test, I'm sure. They wanted to see if he was mentally capable of leading them, which Louis proved. He then decides to run the Shishigumi on his own accord. He tells Legoshi that he chose a different way to fight, meaning he thinks that he can incite great change this way. He did do that. Saving the weak and crushing the strong was their new motto after Louis fully embraced his position. Though it did take him a while to trust the people in the Shishigumi, and he even misread Ibuki's intentions. He still felt like he had to keep his mask up. Ibuki could tell that he was not getting any sustenance from eating meat, so he brought him a salad. Offended, Louis insinuates that he is trying to expose him for how weak he is. Ibuki has no intention of power tripping him or establishing any kind of toxic dynamic with him. He genuinely wants Louis to be well. Since he was the one that appointed him the boss, he feels responsible for him. Ibuki defends him and respects him even in private. He takes him seriously as the boss, and he enforces all of the underlings to do the same. Now, Louis is visited by someone from the drama club asking him to come back. Who is it? It's none other than Juno the wolf. A carnivore shows worry for him and wants him to come back and shows genuine worry for his safety and is worried about what this could mean for his future. A lot of little hints that Louis shouldn't despise carnivores as he does. He spends more time talking with Ibuki. They have shared childhood experiences. They were both held captive in the black market when they were young. This really solidifies the trust that Louis has for Ibuki, meaning that he has a fondness for him. Now for his feelings for Legoshi. Like I said in my last video, their relationship was pretty rough in the first season. They literally got in a fight and none of their interactions were pleasant. But there was this odd chemistry between them, especially in the first episode. That's really all we got last season, him grabbing his tail and pushing him up against the wall. That was definitely very charged. But now, they are apart for most of the season, so it's a little harder to gauge their feelings for each other. For Legoshi, we definitely know that he likes Louis because Legoshi knows Louis' scent better than he does his own girlfriend's. But for Louis, before the last 2 episodes, there isn't too much evidence that he likes Legoshi. I would say the most obvious example that we have is where the Shishigumi catches Legoshi on their turf and Louis assumes Legoshi is eating meat. Louis even feels betrayed. Apparently, he really trusted Legoshi, and this really hurt him. That's kind of all that we have for the hard evidence that Louis likes Legoshi, which honestly made episode 11 really hard to understand. In episode 11, he realizes that he loves carnivores and that he has loved them for a long time. Once he said that, we see Legoshi pop up on our screen, which in queer subtext language means that he has loved Legoshi this entire time. Since this is what the subtext is telling us, I am just to believe that this is so. But honestly, this moment doesn't feel earned at all. If someone wanted to argue that Louis actually wasn't in gay love with Legoshi, I'd say that's fair. I just don't have enough evidence to back up the deep feeling that Louis has for Legoshi, at least. It would make more sense to me if Legoshi's love for Louis goes unrequited. That would make perfect sense to me. Louis realizing he cares for carnivores felt earned. We had Ibuki sharing his life experience with him and showing loyalty toward him, and we have Juno putting herself at risk to make sure that Louis is okay and asking him to rethink his decision on leading the Shishigumi. Now, when Louis has quit being the Shishigumi boss, Ibuki decides to eat him. This really puzzled me as well. They have grown very close, so why is Ibuki turning around and eating his former boss and, dare I say, friend? So we really have to look at what he says in these 2 scenes. He says that he can't imagine there being another boss for the Shishigumi. Their complicated relationship is explained with the ending song of the season, and kind of even depicts this very scene. I'll give you an abridged meaning of the entire song. For Ibuki, he was acting strong but didn't realize he didn't have much purpose in life until Louis. He's realized that he is so much stronger if he has something to protect. That's where real strength comes from. I guess he has never protected someone that would really need it. So in his head that lives on the principles and codes of the underground, felt that the only way to end their relationship was to either eat him or have Louis shoot him before he could eat him. Which still doesn't make much sense to me if I'm being honest, but in this world, eating is some kind of symbolism of unity, but again, I hate it. So after that crazy ordeal, Louis goes to see his apparent boyfriend fight to the death. During a timeout, Louis sees that Legoshi is not doing well in the fight, so he insists he eat his leg. Specifically the leg that has the tattoo of the number 4 on his foot that was branded on him when he was held as livestock in the black market. Louis is eager to rid himself of this past that has been weighing down on him. Also, a little fun fact, a lot of East Asian cultures believe that the number 4 is an unlucky number, so that's another reason why Louis should be so eager to rid himself of such a thing. Also, there is a moment that I have to talk about. Louis eggs Legoshi on about eating his leg at the start of the series, literally the first scene they were in together. How they grow up so fast. So now, Louis is missing a leg. So this means he and Legoshi are boyfriends. So that's kind of an odd way to end the analysis, but there you go. So this season was a wild ride. For me, when I watched it for the first time, my favorite parts of the season for sure was Sheila and Peach. I will protect those two with my life, as well as Pina seducing Legoshi. That definitely had me screaming, "What?" at my TV. This is going to be the last time I say it in this video. Peace and unity are great, wonderful messages that we need right now. But all of that kind of gets lost when you put the vor shit into the mix. Like, no. If I could give Paru Itagaki a slap on the wrist and tell her to stop, I would. Cause this could have been a stronger season and series if that wasn't holding it back, because I love everything that's not vor in this anime. The fact that the 3D animation is some of the best we have ever seen is very impressive. This show has also been a wonderful cultural phenomenon. I am looking forward to the next season, even though it's going to compress the second half of the entire series into one season, I heard. Definitely not looking forward to that, but you can trust that I will give you a video on the next season. So that is the end of the video. See, this is not as long as the Euphoria one. You're welcome. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Like always, make sure to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe if you are not already. Bye. Be safe.